This is Holy Trinity Church at Blythburgh, located on the estuary of the River Blythe in Suffolk, about 5 miles upriver from the popular coastal resort of Southwold. It's a spectacular building, however, our interest is primarily with the events that took place during the morning of the 4th of August 1577, when, according to legend, the notorious demonic hound Black Shuck burst in through the doors of the church to a clap of thunder. It ran up and down the nave, past a large congregation, killing a man and a boy and causing the church spire to collapse through the roof. As the dog departed, it left scorch marks on the north door, which can be seen at the church to this day. Well, the church steeple definitely fell down that day and was never replaced. In fact, it damaged the roof so badly that it wasn't repaired for over 200 years, and the church interior became a roosting place for birds. More about that later. But what actually happened that day? The most likely explanation is the church was struck by ball lightning during a violent thunderstorm, which brought down the steeple and unfortunately killed 2 of the congregation, possibly from the lightning. Still, the Black Shuck tale is more spectacular. As for the scorch marks on the doors, more likely caused by candle flames. Two more things to note before we leave Blythburgh Church. The first are the spectacular angels on the inside of the roof. There are currently 12 of them, although there were possibly as many as 20 before the spire came down through the roof in 1577. The angels are also the subject of one of the church's more enduring legends, namely that in 1644, during the English Civil War, when the Puritan William Basher Dowsing was making his way around the eastern counties as the parliamentary commissioner for the destruction of monuments of idolatry and superstition, he and his men shot at the angels with their muskets in an attempt to destroy them, because they were so high up and inaccessible in the church and couldn't be reached by ladders. It's a wonderful story, and Basher Dowsing did indeed have a number of superstitious pictures, probably stained glass windows, destroyed along with some crosses and statues when he visited the church. But did he order the angels to be shot? The surprising answer is no, because when the angels were restored in the 1970s, the lead shot found in them was from 18th century, that's 100 years later. Why? Because there was a note in the church warden's account to say local men were paid for shooting jackdaws inside the building, another consequence of the roof damage when the spire came down. Also inside the church you can find some intriguing, albeit now battered and worn, carvings on the bench ends of the pews. These represent the 7 deadly sins, the 7 works of mercy, and the labours of the seasons. My favourite one is the one representing the deadly sin of slander. What else can I tell you about Blythburgh? Well, smuggling springs to mind because the town was a hotbed of smuggling in the 18th century. In fact, it was so bad that in 1750 a regiment of dragoons was stationed in the town to deal with the smugglers, the marshes and creeks of the River Blythe being an excellent location to unload and stash contraband brought upriver from the seaport town of Southwold. The White Hart pub on the riverside being a notorious meeting point for smugglers, while immediately across the road, the London Road, is the site of the old customs house. It was either the Blythburgh White Hart or a place very similar that was the inspiration for the Edwardian supernatural horror writer M.R. James to set his story Rats about the revenant of a pub landlord who was hanged in chains for smuggling. For the scariest ghost story associated with Blythburgh, we need to head just down the road a couple of miles to Blythburgh Common, to a place still shown on maps as Toby's Walks. The Toby in question is Toby Gill, commonly known as Black Toby, who was a drummer with a regiment of dragoons stationed at Blythburgh. Contemporary reports say little about Toby's ancestry, except that he is described as a Negro. From all accounts, Toby was a bit of a party animal, which was to become the death of him. In June 1750, a local woman, Anne Blakemore, was found dead in the woods. Nearby was Toby. He was just dead drunk. Despite the fact the inquest could find no clear explanation for Anne's death, it didn't stop the coroner's jury from returning a verdict that Toby had raped and murdered her after she'd rejected his lewd proposal, to use the words of a contemporary newspaper report. Toby protested his innocence at the subsequent murder trial at Bury Assizes that August. As well he might, as his only fault seems to have been being in the wrong place at the wrong time. But he was black, and the 18th century's prejudices, I know, prejudice is still common in the 21st century, meant a guilty verdict was a foregone conclusion. Toby was hanged, and, as was also the convention in those days, his lifeless body was coated in tar, then hung in chains from a gibbet at the scene of the purported crime as a warning to others. Accounts say the gibbet was still there 50 years later, and when it was finally removed, its wood was cut into splinters which were sold as cures for toothache. By then the tradition had also grown up in that area, the walks. It was haunted by Toby's ghosts, and it's said that as late as the 1940s, almost 200 years later, locals would avoid the area at night. Ironically, tales of Toby's ghost may have been spread by the same smugglers his regiment was sent to tackle, a ghost being an excellent way of scaring people away from the area so smugglers could shift their contraband without risk of being disturbed. In more recent times, Toby's Walks was a picnic area, complete with car parking space and a public loo, but when I visited the place a few days ago, it was closed down, overgrown and fenced off. Perhaps Toby's ghost really does still haunt the place. The drone footage shows the village of Blythburgh, the surrounding marshes, the Black Shuck haunted church, and the Blythe estuary snaking its way down to the sea at Southwold. You can just glimpse the lighthouse at Southwold on the skyline.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please click the like button, drop a comment below, and support us by hitting that subscribe button. For more weird tales, visit our website www.urbanfantasies.com. Until next time, stay well, stay weird.